What do you think? For some of you lot, this might be the scariest question you could ever be asked. Because at this day and age when information is so easily accessible, why should you develop your own opinion when you can just borrow one from TikTok that you saw yesterday? Your takes on current world events are reworded from that video essay that you half-heartedly watched whilst eating your food. Your TikTok reposts are curated to a T, aesthetically pleasing and built from the ground up so people can get a snapshot of who you are in just a few scrolls. You see a funny reel on Instagram, but you decide not to like it just because the number under that like button is low. You don't have an opinion on that album that just dropped until Anthony Fantano drops his take on it. You read through movie explanations after you're done watching so that you can drop the most base takes that apparently nobody else thought of. Your opinions, they're all borrowed, curated, and copied. Now ask yourself, do you have any original thoughts, or is it just a collection of cheap plagiarism fed by an algorithm so you can win the approval of your brethren?
Are you gonna back your brethren? Shouldn't be screaming things for the things man just with him.
So now when you get asked what do you think, when you finally get a chance to share a piece of yourself, to put yourself out in the world, you get terrified. You have to actually think for yourself for once and not formulate an opinion not pre-approved by your FYP. So you answer with a sneaky and simple, yeah, I don't know. What do you think? That way you can once again leech off of someone else's work instead of doing some actual thinking for yourself.
Stole that shit. That's what I do, nigga.
But why is it so uncomfortable to sit with your own thoughts, to rely and trust your own instincts and have a thought that hasn't been pre-approved by a comment section? What makes you so scared of having your own opinion, so afraid to the point that you stop having anything at all?
I stopped to learn how to cook.
What's the Mbappe special?
For example, nothing.
We often imagine thinking as a private actor we have to do in our solitude, as if we have to be on some zen shit, have total tranquility and silence to formulate our own thought. But how is that possible when you got that one friend who doesn't seem to have a life and just spams reels to you all day and every day? Matter of fact, you probably have some reels unopened from them right now as we speak. And once you open up one of them, you get sucked into this perpetual state of doom scrolling. Now these companies are bare greedy still. And how do they make bank of you? By serving you bare ads, of course. And how do they maximize the amount of ads you see? By making you stay on their platform for as long as possible. And what better way to do that than sedate you with an ocean of slop? So much so that you don't even process on what you're watching anymore. The mind, when constantly stimulated, then shifts from reflecting on what you actually watched to just reacting on impulse. Why pause and reflect and see if you agreed with a hot take that you just watched, when you can just double click to like the video, and maybe if you're greedy, just look at the comment section to see what others thought of the video instead of formulating your own opinion. And you know how your feed never stays consistent with the same topic of videos. One second you get a video of a cute otter, next video of someone deliberately trying to rage bait you, and the next stroll is tung sahur. All these hezzies, hooks and jabs of emotions makes your brain bare tired, and you never actually get the time to emotionally and intellectually process any single piece of information. Not only that, but your feed will try to trap you in an echo chamber by always feeding you with the same content that you agree with, which makes your worldview mad shallow in it, a so-called confirmation bias. If the algorithm decided that you hold this one particular opinion, it's gonna keep feeding you the same delusional BS to you, because nobody likes to be told that they're wrong, right?
Mark, give me the Zuck.
But it doesn't always work like that either, because on top of that, the algorithm likes to rage bait you as well. Psychologists typically divide the human thought into two systems. One of them is fast, automatic, emotional, and reactive, whilst the other one is slow, deliberate, logical, and lacks to reflect. Now the engineers that designed these algorithms realized that triggering the first system is way more desirable to keep you on their platform for as long as possible, specifically by triggering emotions like outrage, anger, and fear. Because why think for yourself when you can just spend your time getting rage baited by some media creator or some neek in the comment section? This fast-paced, instant gratification environment changes the very nature of thought itself. Even though you don't have to be all zen to formulate your own thoughts, true thinking does require some kind of silence or boredom or slowness. These are the conditions which the unconscious can work beneath the surface. But social media replaces that quiet empty break that it craves with a constant flood of noise. Just like a caterpillar who needs to put itself in a cocoon for a little while to evolve into a beautiful butterfly. During this incubation period, the ideas drift into the background of the mind, putting the scrambled puzzle pieces together and making connections unique to you. This is where you relate whatever you just consumed to yourself, and the information now go beyond surface level, beyond the obvious. But then again, how can you truly incubate your own thoughts when you keep wiping that short-term memory slate clean with each swipe that you do. Because you know how when you're on a doom scroll session, barely remember the last 3 reels that you saw. How can you cook up a thought when the fridge is empty? You know what I'm saying? You're drowning in information while starving for actual knowledge. You're surrounded by great ideas, but you never sat with one for long enough to make it your own. You never disagree with something and had to articulate why. We keep outsourcing our thoughts, whether it's from the FYP or asking ChatGPT about every single little thing. Because I know some of you lot would never dare to show the chat history you have with ChatGPT to anybody. Think of using your brain like using your legs to walk around. If you stop walking and let a machine carry you around, your legs wouldn't have to do any more work, right? And at first, it will feel freeing. Getting around to places will take little to no effort, and you have so much extra time to do stuff that you actually like. But eventually you will lose your leg muscles, partially also because you just skip leg days every week. And you realize that doing simple tasks like going for a little walk becomes a hassle. But there is also another interesting aspect on relying on AI too much. As people use AI tools more and more for their everyday needs, their mental expectations on how much effort it actually requires to accomplish something becomes lower and lower and lower. And what used to come off as an easy mental task to do suddenly appears to require much higher levels of mental engagement. But in a world where your FYP is full with AI slop, we also have these lot who uses words way too big for me to understand.
Why are we glorifying the normalization of overstimulating, avoidant, romanticized infantilization? Stop performatively commodifying the nuanced global Sonder Limerick farping of the surveillance state media literacy crisis that perpetuates the gentrification of anti-intellectual late-stage consumers monoculture.
These are the people who want to combat the brain rot in our life with more human content. Content that gives you some kind of fulfillment of the consumption, which is why platforms like Substack have become way more popular. But these people usually get labeled as pseudo-intellectuals. Performative intellectualism, if you will. You know how performativity used to mean reading a book about feminism at a cafe? You know them lot who try to fool the galbiptis walking by that they're tapped in like that. But the word kinda has now evolved into something else. Nowadays, it's used for shaming people who are genuinely trying to write or learn and trying to share it online with others. And this creates a toxic environment with mad peer-to-peer scrutiny of people just trying to intellect mug each other. But what does being an intellectual even mean? When you call someone an intellectual, it's because they know a great deal about a great deal. And it's probably a title you can't put on yourself. It has to be perceived by others. But being an intellectual not only means that you have the knowledge, you have the ability to apply the knowledge in a broader context. Wisdom is not just about knowing, but you also have to use that knowledge towards something greater, whether it's, for example, building up society or for the benefit of your relationships or family. But what is also probably sensible to do is to conduct your ideas in a way that it is easy for others to also achieve understanding, and not to treat knowledge as an elitist club, which is what, in my humble opinion, these so-called pseudo-intellectuals miss out on. Or I'm just exposing myself for having the reading level of a 5-year-old. But then you also have these lot who try to manipulate this thought pattern and intellectual speech for purposes like political ones, like people who have some like deep-seated prejudice and tries to justify them by intellectually LARPing. Or you can just have like financial purposes, I guess, also.
I think that the concept of blue light being bad led to a lot of product development, and a lot of people just assuming that viewing blue light is what was giving them headaches, when in fact it might have just been looking at screens at close distance. So we haven't talked a lot about blue blockers, lenses that block blue wavelengths or short wavelengths of light. You don't need them. Roca and I designed these glasses.
And all of these, I would say, are common patterns for pseudo-intellectualism. Thinking it's not sitting alone in your room and suddenly having a flash of insight and producing a brilliant original perspective. Nobody thinks in a vacuum. And you probably haven't lost your ability to think. You just have been outsourcing your thinking for so long that your thinking muscle is weak now. But this is actually good news, because the solution then is not out of your control, but a practice that you have to slowly implement in your life. Original thinking is the process of taking an argument that you heard, or the movie that you just watched, or the article that you just read, and running them through your own life experiences. Let it sit in your own cocoon. Let them incubate and develop just like a caterpillar would before turning into a butterfly. The difference between you who just regurgitate and people with depth and thoughtfulness is that they extend and relate an idea to themselves. They reflect on when and where the idea breaks down when applied to their own experience. They sit with it in silence until it's a part of themselves, not just something you just consume and flush out. But this isn't the fault of your own, but the environment designed around you to create zero friction between you and what you just consumed. When the experience is all smooth like the social media algorithms are designed to be, naturally nothing sticks. So how do you put this in practice? After reading an article, watching a movie, or hearing someone else's take, before looking at the reviews, or the comment section, write down what you actually thought and how it made you feel. And don't write down the opinion that you think you're supposed to think. It doesn't have to be polished or coherent. Matter of fact, if it is polished and coherent, you're probably being bare performative still. And in the beginning, you will find yourself drawing blanks a lot, and it will be very uncomfortable. But in that uncomfortable state, don't go running to your phone and start scrolling. Sit with your opinion, even if it's shit, just a little longer, because it's precisely what you need, that incubation time. And give yourself the grace to have opinions you can't fully articulate yet. Half-formed thoughts aren't shameful thoughts. And don't be afraid to share them as well, even if it isn't the most popular one, because at least it represents you and gives you depth and substance. And also be open-minded about other perspectives as well. Ideas come rarely nowadays, and thus I think they are worth sharing, whether they're shit or not, because they represent you.